yes, you have this up and down, but it's a series of higher highs and higher lows. Went from nothing to $10 to $100 to $1,000 to $5,000 to $20,000 to $100,000, eventually to $1 million.
비트코인은 올해 초 100까지 가는 쾌거를 이뤘습니다. 하지만 그 상승세는 그리 오래가지 않았고 현재는 87K에 머물며 모두의 기대를 저버렸죠. 이걸 팔지 말지 고민하시는 홀더분들도 많으실 텐데요. 과연 지금의 지지부진한 시세는 언제까지 지속될 것이며 앞으로의 비트코인 전망은 어떨지 우선 마크 유스코의 인터뷰를 들어보겠습니다.
Fair value of Bitcoin today of somewhere around $95,000 per Bitcoin. Now, well, if the price is 83, well, again, people disagree about value. And in the last couple weeks, we went from, above fair value at 103 down to 83. Well, why? Well, a couple things happened. One, there was a big unwind of a arbitrage that's been going on since the advent of Bitcoin futures. Everyone was cheering really loudly when Bitcoin was deemed not a security, right? It was made a commodity. Oh, that's great, that's great. Well, be careful what you ask for. You might get it. It was classified a commodity because when you have a commodity, you can issue futures against that commodity, which allows very large, powerful institutions to basically control the price. Let's talk about gold, right? Gold prices, if you look at money supply relative to what gold should be, there are people like Chris Wood and others who say it should be $5,000, $6,000. Well, why is it only $3,000? Well, in the old days, let's say I had, a ton of gold that I wanted to sell to you. I actually had to have the gold so I could deliver it to you when you exchange. Well, in a futures world, you and I can write a contract saying, I'm going to sell you paper gold. And as long as we settle the contract before I have to go get the actual gold to deliver, it's all good. So what happens in the commodities world is people can short paper commodities against a physical commodity, and the futures price is always modestly higher than the spot price, right? Because it's the future price, and that is, we're optimists, so we're always thinking it's going to go up. And so over the course of the month, that price rolls down the futures curve to the spot. It's called roll yield. It's a negative number. And that's why when you buy these ETFs that use futures, you're always losing money. Price of the commodity's up. Well, it's because of this thing called the roll yield. Well, think about this. Let's say the price difference between the future and the spot is 12%. I could sell the future. I could buy the spot or the ETF where the spot is, and I could make 12% with no risk. And then if I levered that, if I'm a really big institution like a bank or a big asset manager, I could lever that up. So when the ETFs were approved, everyone was cheering. Well, I was looking at the same day, not a coincidence, a whole bunch of futures contracts were also approved by the CME, Chicago Mercantile Exchange. All these big guys are going to buy a bunch of the ETF, but they're going to short the future against it, and that's going to cap the price. This is exactly what happened. And then the price did start to rise as people got excited about the halving and because after the halving is what happened a couple weeks ago was that spread between the futures price and the spot price fell to 5 or 6%. Interest rates had gone from 0 to 5%. So now the cost of funding of that arbitrage trade is not worth it. So people unwound. And so there was a outflow from the ETFs and people freaked out. The bid-ask spread got super wide and the price fell.
참 여러분, 현재 저희 팀에서 만든 최대 149만 원짜리 보조지표를 고심 끝에 구독자님들께만 무료로 나눠드릴 계획입니다. 하지만 유료로 팔고 있는 지표라 여러분 모두에게 드릴 순 없고 10명만 신청으로 받으려고 하는데요. 개발자 출신 10년 경력 트레이더인 저와 프롬프트 엔지니어가 함께 자체 개발한 알파비 노토 프로 지표입니다. 초보자분들부터 경력이 오래된 트레이더분들까지 굉장히 큰 도움을 받을 수 있는 지표라고 자부하고 있습니다. 또한 실제로 사용해보시고 사용 후기 적어주시는 분들 5분을 선별해 알파비 노토 프로 지표 평생 이용권을 드리려고 합니다. 신청 방법은 하단 더보기란에 나와 있으니 많은 신청 부탁드립니다. 그는 현재 가격에 흔들릴 필요 없이 공정 가격이 정해져 있다고 말했습니다. 변동성이 크긴 하지만 현재 공정 가격은 95 정도라고 생각하고 있다고 하는데요. 하지만 ETF와 큰 손들의 진입으로 인해 그 가격이 억제되고 있다고 설명했죠. 앞으로 그는 가장 중요한 앞으로의 비트코인 전망과 그 가격에 대한 이야기를 시작합니다. 영상을 끝까지 보시면 분명 여러분들이 부를 이루시는데 중요한 인사이트를 얻으실 수 있을 겁니다.
But that's a temporary phenomenon. So now it's more about traditional supply and demand dynamics. And my guess is we'll, resume the uptrend after we get through this trade war nonsense that we're going through. So here's the thing. The 4-year cycle is real. What's the 4-year cycle? So when he coded the original source code, he put in a mechanism that every 4 years, the block rewards, which means, well, why does that matter? Well, think about it. Let's say there are 10,000 miners out there, and they're all mining diligently. But our costs, your costs and my costs are fixed. So if they cut the rewards in half, one of us has to go out of business, unless the price rises. So we both hold on to our Bitcoin longer, and we require that someone bid a higher price in order for us to sell. So there's a natural increase in the price every 4 years. The fair value basically goes up. Well, why does that matter? So because of this 4-year cycle, we get the price move in a wave above and below fair value. So the halving tends to occur after a period of crypto winter, right? Crypto spring, crypto winter, markets are falling. Crypto spring, they're kind of settling. Then crypto fall, the halving occurs and the price starts to move back towards fair value. The block rewards go down, the price has to start go up. So now fair value jumps to 95. The price starts to approach 95. Now, I will argue that we were at fair value, got a little bit above fair value, and we were on our way to maybe 1.5, 1.6 times fair value because there's not as much leverage because FTX went away and a couple of the other exchanges, were lowered the amount of leverage you could get. So we're starting that parabolic move toward 150, 160. Well, then this crazy thing happens with tariffs and all this stuff, and people are panicking. Well, what happens? The stock market was super overvalued coming into this year, globally, particularly in the US. People were levered up. We had the highest margin debt in history. So then NVIDIA happens, DeepSeek, and things and the Mag 7 start to sell off. People are getting margin called. When you get a margin call and you're invested in stocks and your stocks went from here to here, you don't sell the stocks, you sell the stuff that hasn't moved. So you sell bonds or gold or Bitcoin to pay off your margin call. So that starts an unwinding of leverage. So what I think happened here was a premature unwinding of the Bitcoin trade. I could be wrong, but my guess is we'll get through this. The trade war won't happen. Trump will back down, and we'll get a slow and steady resumption of the trend through summer and into fall. We'll get that last speculative blow off, but then crypto winter will be back. And how bad crypto winter gets, I don't really know, but given history, if we go up less, we probably go down less. So we went, down 84, down 73. So probably less. If we got to 150, would we fall to 75? That seems more. Now, if we don't get back, like if 107 was the peak, then I think this downdraft won't be as big, right? Maybe it'll only be a 30% drawdown. But what I think is interesting is every one of these cycles, it's not like on a roller coaster, right? You end up at the same place. You got the highs and the lows, but you end up at exactly the same place at the end of the trip. That's not how Bitcoin works. That's not how networks work. Yes, you have this up and down, but it's a series of higher highs and higher lows. Went from nothing to $10 to $100 to $1,000 to $5,000 to $20,000 to $100,000, eventually to $1 million. But there's a volatility, and the media will say, "Oh, it's crashing." There's a story when it crashed from $10 to $2. Then there was a story when it crashed from $100 to $30. There's always gonna be a story. I mean, there was a story last week that it crashed from 107 to 79. I'm like, you realize you're talking about a negative of something that started as zero 16 years ago and now $79,000 per coin. Get all bent out of shape about the daily price. And it's not just Bitcoin, it's the daily price of anything. It's NVIDIA stock or IBM stock or this bond or this currency. The reality is price of anything, right, is the amount that two people agree to exchange a small amount. Let's take Microsoft stock, right? If you or I wanted to exchange 100 shares of Microsoft stock, we could go to the NASDAQ listing and whatever the price is there. But if I had 1 million shares of Microsoft stock, I could never get that price. If I were like Bill Gates and I had tens of millions of shares, no way. You couldn't sell it all at once without collapsing the price. And so markets are made by people exchanging a small amount of goods or services. But then you have another problem is that, people will disagree on the future of some outcome. I use Amazon as a good example. So Amazon actually has the same volatility, believe it or not, over its 30 years as Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin's only been around 16 years, but they both have an 80 volatility. And people say, "Oh, that's not right." I'm like, well, it's just math, and I can show you the data. And here's the crazy thing about Amazon. Amazon stock has 80 volatility because of disagreement on the future. What do you mean? Well, there are still people that don't think e-commerce is ever going to be a big thing. Well, it kind of is, and every 2 days something shows up on my front porch, so I know we're users. But not everybody in the world is using Amazon every day. And so every year, including this year, like right now, Amazon's had a double-digit drawdown. On average, this is the crazy part, on average, it's 31%. So every year for 30 years, well, when was the right time to sell? Never. So Bitcoin's the same way, right? People look at the price of Bitcoin but every day between then and now, the price has been volatile. And yet, I don't think about the price at all, this is the long-winded way of saying, the reason price doesn't matter. What matters is owning a piece of the most valuable computing network the world has ever seen.